Last week we talked about Yusei and some of his better cards from the Yu-Gi-Oh! 5D's anime, and I got a lot of requests for other characters in that series. Probably the top requested character was Akiza, so in today's video we're talking about the cards that Akiza used in the anime that saw play in the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. Please keep in mind here, if a card was not printed in the TCG format, it will not be discussed in today's video, so no speed spells or anything along those lines. I do want to mention here real quick, just in case you guys missed it, yesterday I did a pretty experimental video where I read through every single normal monster in the entire Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG. If you guys want to go check that out because maybe you missed it or didn't give it a chance, please go do so because that video is pretty funny, even if you go check it out just to like listen to your one normal monster that you want to hear. I know a lot of people were interested in like Psyframe Driver or Evil Swarm Heliotrope. Go check it out, it's a pretty funny video. Akiza is known for using plant type monsters, and honestly a lot of her cards are pretty bad in the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG format, that is, but there are some exceptions, and actually she does play some pretty good cards. You just have to push aside all the random plant support that she played in the anime. First off, Black Rose Dragon, her big ace monster card. Yes, this thing was a powerhouse in the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG in many formats. It even is still one of the better level 7 synchro monsters in the entire game, even if it's not seeing so much play anymore. Black Rose Dragon is a level 7 dragon fire type synchro monster with 2400 attack points and 1800 defense. It takes 1 tuner plus 1 or more non-tuner monsters, and it says when this card is synchro summoned, you can destroy all cards on the field. Once per turn, you can banish 1 plant type monster from your graveyard, then target 1 defense position monster your opponent controls, change that target to face up attack position, and if you do, its attack becomes 0 until the end of this turn. Back when Crossroads of Chaos was released and Black Rose Dragon was introduced into the Yu-Gi-Oh! TCG format, this type of effect on an extra deck monster was just pretty much unheard of. A board wiping effect on a big, easy to summon monster was pretty crazy, not to mention if you didn't need the board wiping effect at that moment, you could just banish a plant type monster in your graveyard and potentially do a lot of damage to your opponent that they might not be expecting. What made Black Rose Dragon so good for so long is that it was very easy to summon and had a very powerful effect that many people were able to take advantage of, and occasionally it could maybe even win you the game off of switching a monster from defense position to attack position and turning its attack to 0. Even though this card is not seeing a lot of play in 2020, it did see play for years, which is pretty darn impressive considering this card was released in the second core set with synchro summoning, and it was really good for a very long time. Next up we have Magic Planter, an older normal spell card with a very interesting take on a Pot of Greed type effect. Magic Planter simply says, send 1 face-up continuous trap you control to the graveyard, draw 2 cards. Now by modern standards, Magic Planter is pretty darn slow. You'd rather play something like Pot of Desires or Pot of Extravagance, even in decks that have a lot of continuous traps. However, before draw power like Pot of Desires and Pot of Extravagance were released, Magic Planter was a pretty darn good card for slower decks that used a lot of continuous trap cards. We saw it way back in the day with Fire Fist, I mean way back in the day with Fire Fist, but we also saw it with like Volcanics. That was probably the most consistent deck that ran Magic Planter. Pretty much every single Volcanic deck list would have at least 1 copy of this card. What was so cool about Magic Planter in Volcanics is that you could send Blaze Accelerator Reload to your graveyard, because that not only gave you 2 free draws with the Magic Planter, but also a free mill as well. Maybe you could send a Volcanic Shell to add 1 to your hand to keep your advantage up, or maybe you could save it until your opponent's turn and then send Scattershot as a form of interruption. Many of the plant type monsters that Akiza used in the anime were straight garbage, but not all of them, and Glow Up Bulb was definitely one of the best ones that she used in her deck. Glow Up Bulb is a level 1 earth plant type tuner that says if this card is in your your graveyard, you can send the top card of your deck to the graveyard, and if you do, special summon this card. You can only use this effect of Glow Up Bulb once per duel. Glow Up Bulb is currently banned, probably because of Christian Helki Firebrax, but for a long time this card was used in a ton of different decks. When Glow Up Bulb was at the height of its popularity, it was used in the small plant engine that a lot of players would splash into their decks. You would play Lone Fire Blossom to special summon Spore, Dandelion, or Glow Up Bulb right from your deck, which was very good in a variety of strategies. It was so good in that engine, by the way, that it ended up getting banned, and then eventually it came back into the format, and now it's currently banned once again because of how powerful it is to make and to be summoned by Christian Helki Firebrax. I'm not sure when this card will be released from the ban list. Maybe it'll be when Christian Helki Firebrax is inevitably banned at some point in the future, but I'm not even sure if that'll be enough. It's not very surprising that Glow Up Bulb is on the ban list right now. It's a very powerful and versatile tuner monster. It's one of the best plants ever printed, and also it has one of the best once per duel effects in the entire game. Giga Plant was another good plant type monster that Akiza used in the anime, and it's a Gemini monster. We don't see a lot of those in competitive play. Giga Plant is a level 6 Earth Plant Gemini monster with 2400 attack points and 1200 defense. It says this card is treated as a normal monster while face up on the field or in the graveyard. While this card is a normal monster on the field, you can normal summon it to have it become an effect monster with this effect. Once per turn, you can special summon one insect or plant monster from your hand or graveyard. At first glance, it might seem kind of awkward to not only get the Giga Plant on the field, but also Gemini summon it, but actually it was quite easy. All you had to do was summon your Lone Fire Blossom to special summon the Giga Plant from your deck, and then equip it with Supervise, which instantly allowed you to use that Giga Plant effect to immediately revive that original Lone Fire Blossom, which is a very decent combo, especially back in the day. Giga Plant goes right in line with all the other plant support that you've seen in the past. There are so many plant support cards that revive other plants from the graveyard, and Giga Plant does just that. This card was not like the craziest card that broke formats, but it was a very good plant monster for a long time, and even nowadays people still talk about this card just because it is so appealing with that Lone Fire Blossom and Supervise combo. Akiza also used Black Garden, a field spell card that has a very long effect. Let's take a look. It says if a monster or monsters is normal or special summoned face up, except by the effect of Black Garden, have its attack, then the controller of that monster special summons one Rose token, Plant Dark level 2, 800 attack and defense, to their opponent's field and attack position. This attack loss remains even if this card leaves the field. You can target one monster in your graveyard with attack equal to the total attack of all plant monsters on the field, destroy this card and as many plant monsters on the field as possible. Then if you destroyed all of them, special summon that targeted monster. In the past, we saw Black Garden being used in more control-based decks like Chain Beat, which used the tokens in very interesting ways, and the attack halving effect was very good in that deck because you would play monsters that would leave the field and then return with full attack points. Nowadays, though, we see Black Garden being used in combo decks, especially because we have that Synchro monster that can search it immediately, and yeah, you can do some pretty crazy things with those tokens. It's even been involved in a couple different FTKs. This card has been a ruling's nightmare in many situations. There are a lot of weird interactions with Black Garden, but personally I've always found this card to be very interesting, and it's pretty cool to see how many different ways people have tried to use it over the years. Akiza also played the Phoenixian cluster that is currently banned. I don't think this card really should be banned. I know it had the potential to be used in FTKs, but I figured I should mention it because she did play it and it is banned, so Konami did think the card was very powerful. It never really got a chance to prove itself in the TCG format, but obviously if the card is banned, I'm going to mention it. I'll also mention Evil Thorn, a card that has always been talked about in combo decks that are playing many of the plant combos that we've talked about in the past. The card has never been like extremely successful, but it is mentioned in pretty much every single plant combo that I have to talk about it in today's video just a little bit. Putting a couple monsters on the field for free has always been good, and Evil Steel Thorn does that with basically no downsides. Finally, I'll give a small mention to Witch of the Black Rose. This card saw a tiny bit of play in old school Monster Mash decks, which would use tons of monsters. It only had one top that I could find, but I know it was a very popular card for fans of Monster Mash back in the day, so I'll give it a very tiny shout out. That pretty much ends today's video. I do want to give one final shout out to that normal monster video that I did yesterday. It was a lot of fun, and there are some pretty funny moments in there of me losing my mind like halfway through, because 1 hour is a long time to just read normal monsters back to back to back to back. Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.